Okay, let's try this. Create an app that converts natural language instructions to deployable workflows with Gemini API. Here are our text instructions. Oh wow, it created a fully functional workflow from just natural language instructions. Pretty impressive. Or maybe let's try this. Create a professional looking landing page for SaaS. Now this is one of the most detailed websites I have seen from an open model. Or maybe let's try to create a fun little game. It's a self-contained fun little game. It can also create highly interactive visuals, little mini pads to play with, and can do some serious scientific research for you. Today we're going to be looking at MiniMax M2, which is the best open weight model that is currently available. It's state-of-the-art on a number of key benchmarks. But most importantly, there are independent organizations showing it's one of the best model out there. It's specifically trained and designed for coding capabilities and high-level agentic performance. The weights are fully open and you can download them from Hugging Face. And it's probably the model that can give you the best balance between intelligence, output speed, and performance with a very reasonable price. The best part, you can try all the new capabilities for free right now. Okay, so here's how the main interface looks like. Now keep in mind this is MiniMax agent, not just the M2 model. They have built a whole agentic system on top of it, and it's really impressive. It has two modes right now. One is lightning mode, which is ideal for fast tasks, and then there is a pro mode, which uses a multi-agent system for complex development tasks, and that's what we are going to be trying in this video. This model is supposed to be really good at instruction following in agentic coding. So one of the prompts that I usually use to test the instruction following capabilities of a model is this. I wanted to create a highly detailed landing page for SaaS, and it has very strict guidelines even for the type of style it's supposed to use, what is going to be the color composition. And on the first try, it's really impressive. Probably the best that I have seen out of an open weight model. Now let's look at what exactly happens. So as I said, it's a multi-agent system. The model itself is a reasoning or thinking model, so you can actually see the reasoning traces in the beginning. Then usually it's going to come up with plan. Now during the reasoning process, you're going to see that it's able to use tools, which is a very interesting capability. And we have seen this in OpenWeight. We have seen this in GPT-5 and Claude. So here you can see it came up with a development plan. It created requirements file for it itself, right? Now, one other really neat feature is that when it's doing development, it actually tests every step, which means that it usually takes a lot longer compared to some of the other models, but the results that it produces are really impressive. So let me show you an example. Usually it deploys them as web apps, and here is the website that it created, which is following my instruction, and it added these really neat animations if you hover over the buttons. So it created these other cards, and it's one of the nicest websites created by an open weight AI model. Here actually it added a live demo. So if I actually click on run code, it has a demo that executes. Now there are definitely places where it lags behind some of the proprietary models. So for example, it didn't actually implement the toggle between dark and light mode, although the buttons are there, but they don't work. Another thing which I would suspect is that if you click on this arrow, it should be pointing down in the beginning and then pointing up when you expand on it, right? But overall, I'm really happy with the quality of website that it was able to create. Now, my second prompt is probably the most complex one. So this is an idea I got from a prompt that I recently saw. I'm going to link to that in the video description. And the idea is that we want to build a multi-view workflow builder, which will convert natural language instructions into workflows that can be deployed. So think of something like agent builder from OpenAI, but instead of you building it, you just describe what exactly you want. So we provide very detailed instructions. This whole prompt in itself is in the form of a JSON file, which is a very interesting idea. You're providing structured inputs to the model itself. Now, I have seen this prompts for video generation models and image generation models, especially when you're defining multiple different scenes. But it seems to be working with LLMs as well. Now, again, it came up with a detailed plan for what exactly it's going to do. Then this specific prompt asked the model to use Gemini model. It decided to use the Gemini API key. And usually the MiniMax agent will come up with a plan and then ask for your permission before executing it, because the plan execution itself takes a while. So you can easily wait for 15-20 minutes while it's executing the plan and coming up with the solution. Now, I provided my API key, although I don't recommend doing this. However, I have already deleted this, so no worries there. But then it kept on building it, and again, you can see that it basically creates these files for itself, iterates through those, and now it's working on the front end and back end. Okay, so here's how the workflow looks like. You have an input text box where you can provide your instructions. Then right now there are only 4 different nodes, but you can easily expand it if you want. And then there is even a code view. So let me show you how exactly this works. Okay, so instead of typing, I'm going to just say what I want. Analyze customer reviews from a CSV file, identify negative sentiment, and send alerts to Slack for reviews below 3 stars. Okay, so here is the transcription. So we're going to click on generate workflow. So by the way, if you're interested, the speech to text system that I'm using is my own. I'm currently building this. It's fully on device private. You are not sending your data anywhere else. Everything is happening on your MacBook. So if you're interested, check out, link is going to be in the video description. Okay, so it came up with the workflow. So we can upload a CSV file. If you click on it, it actually created that description. You can also modify any configurations here. Then it has this configuration, which basically tells it to look for reviews less than 3 stars. Here's a sentiment analyzer. And at the end, we have another block which will send this to Slack. Now, if you click on code view, then it uses Gemini model to generate code for this. And here's the code that it generated in the background based on natural language instructions. Now, it also gives you the ability to execute it. For example, if you were to provide something like this as a review, then it is able to identify that as a negative review, right? And it will send a Slack message to you. Okay, next I asked it to create a clone of X or Twitter. Now, if you see, my instructions or prompts are usually a lot more detailed compared to some that you have probably seen on YouTube. And the reason is I want to make sure that the model doesn't just come up with something. I want to make sure that it's actually following what I want it to do. Now, here's what it looks like. For Elon Musk, it actually posted somebody else's picture. Then there's OpenAI, so I don't think it has access to the actual images, but there are those posts, you can actually like them. Now, in my instructions or prompt, I asked it to implement only the front end. So if I were to put or click on post, it doesn't do much, but the UI itself is very close to the current version of X, formerly known as Twitter, which is pretty great. Now, next I'm going to show you a few fun little things that I created. So the first one is this Earth dashboard where I can refresh weather data. Now, it's not reading real-time data, but it has some simulated data. The only problem that I saw here was if I switch to a day mode, or actually night mode, it just shows this. For night mode, this is supposed to be, I guess, the day mode. It has a pretty good visualization. It also helped me create this pixel pad, so you can actually just select a color, draw it, There's an eraser which works. You can fill in the whole pad with different colors. You can toggle grid, you can clear all, right? So a fun little app that actually works. Or here's Asteroid 2D game that I created. So basically, as you can see, I'm pretty bad at this. All right, yeah, this works fine. So this is a fun little thing that it can do. So this is a relatively small model, and I wanted to see how bad it's going to hallucinate. Okay, so here I am telling it that I'm a tech journalist and I'm about to write a major blog post. OpenAI surprisingly announced GPT-6 this morning, so I provided a concrete date, and I wanted to do web search to give me more information about it. Now, the rumored features are memory persistence, on-device reasoning, neuro-symbolic architecture, right? And let's see how good this is at not only doing research, but validating some of these claims. One thing that I really like about this model is that the links that it uses are high credibility links. So it looked at OpenAI website itself, then did quite a few other searches on the web, and then it came up with the response here. So let's go over the response and see what exactly it is telling us. So first thing, it says, I need to provide you with important factual information about the OpenAI announcement on October 29, 2025, as the detail you mentioned don't align with what actually occurred. So there is no GPT-6 announcement. OpenAI did not announce GPT-6 on this date. In fact, the company officially confirmed on October 2025 that GPT-6 will not be released in 2025 at all. Now, I personally don't know about this, but at least it figured out that GPT-6 is not released. Okay, that's a good news, but there are bad news as well. Now, it says what OpenAI actually announced on October 29, 2025. So here, I think where it got confused, it says ChatGPT Pulse was announced, and then tells us what exactly the feature is. However, GPT Pulse was announced a few weeks ago, right? So it basically confuses some information, which is not a good sign. But then it goes on to say corporate restructuring and business partnerships. Microsoft increases its stake to 27%, right? This is true. OpenAI recently restructured their non-profit to for-profit. So there are going to be two different bodies now. It goes on to talk about the status regarding my rumors. We don't know whether all of those features are going to be in GPT-6 or not, right? Then it says what actually is available now. ChatGPT apps are available, Agent Kit for building production-grade agents or workflows, and then Sora 2 video generation. Overall, it's pretty nice. However, it did hallucinate in here, and that's why it's very important that you fact check the claims coming out of any agentic system. Okay, another use case for me is to use this to do research for me. So here I'm telling it you are an AI research assistant. Your task is to compile a 10-page executive report on the primary technical hurdles for establishing self-sustaining human colony on Mars. Now, this is a topic where I was expecting it to come up with a lot of claims which are not grounded in reality, and probably is going to use a lot of links which do not exist, right? And again, it does a pretty nice job, right? So it came up with a plan. These are the thinking traces which are available to you as well if you're running the model locally. After that, it asks for my permission again. I said yes, proceed. Then it started doing some search for itself. One thing which I like is that it comes up with a plan and then ticks things off this to-do list, right? Now, in terms of the search, again, it does use really reliable and high quality references, which is pretty awesome. So you can actually rely on what exactly it's doing, right? So if you see here, it basically completed certain steps, right? And at the end, it came up with a pretty high quality report. Now, there are a couple of things which I really like about this report. So it's a technical feasibility report, right? The structure is exactly what I asked it to do. And then it says this report provides a comprehensive technical feasibility analysis for establishing a self-sustaining human colony on Mars. The primary challenges for long-term human presence on Mars are multifaceted, spanning life support, power generation, resource utilization, and habitat construction, right? Now, here are the key findings from its search, but a couple of things which I really liked was this. It came up with a workflow. I don't know if it's copying this from somewhere or generating itself, although if you look here, this seems to be some artifacts. So it probably is an image, or it tried to generate an image, but then it also started adding a lot more detailed diagrams. Again, I feel like this is coming from some other source, but it has the ability, I am assuming, that it can copy these images here. If that is true, this is really impressive. For example, this is yet another image that it came up with. So overall, some really neat things in here. Okay, so my last test was for it to create a high performance interactive 3D map of Los Angeles packed as a single file, which is self-contained HTML file. And it's supposed to have different locations, which I actually provide here. And then there needs to be a fly to effect or action whenever we click on a location from a sidebar. Now, this one had some troubles because it tried to initially use Mapbox. That's what I told it to use. Those are not freely available. And then I asked it to use maps which are freely available, but we didn't really make it work. So for example, it's probably more of the visualization problem, not the implementation itself. So if you actually click on these things, it has that fly to effect. There might be a layer that is missing in the map itself. Okay, so those are the demos. Now let's talk about the model itself in a little bit more details. So this is MiniMax M2, and they are calling an efficient model for agentic era. Now, there are a few claims in this blog post you need to pay attention to. So for example, here they say MiniMax M2, a model born for agents and code at only 8% of the price of Claude Sonnet and twice its speed, is available for free for a limited time. So certain things people are highlighting. If you look at these coding and agentic benchmarks, it's state-of-the-art open weight model, which is closer to Claude Sonnet 4.5. It doesn't beat it, but gets closer there. But hands down, it seems to be the best open weight model. Now, the good thing is there is external validation. So not only based on what they're claiming, the artificial analysis team ran this intelligence index. In here, it's the 5th overall best model. And I'm not talking about among open weight model, but overall, right? Which is a pretty impressive feat for an open weight model of its size. Now, I have a couple of times highlighted the size. So the size itself is only a 230 billion parameter with only 10 billion active parameters. It sounds a really large model, but compared to something like DeepSeek R1, it's only 1/3 of its size. If you compare it to Kimi K2, which is a trillion parameter model, it's only about 25% of that. And it's an extremely sparse mixture of expert because you're only using 10 billion active parameters. So this also enables MiniMax M2 to be extremely fast. You can get up to 100 tokens per second on the official API. That means you get speed which is very close to something like Grok 4 fast, which seems to be a distilled version of a much bigger model. Now, another component of that is, since it's a small model, it's a lot more efficient in its token generation. It is also very cheap, and cheap in terms of price, not performance, right? So the price of this model is something closer to Gemini Flash 2.5, and it gives you performance comparable to Sonnet 3.5 or Sonnet 4. So coming back to the blog post, here they say the price is 8% of Claude 3.5 Sonnet with nearly double the inference speed. Now, that is important. In the actual plot, they put it comparable to Sonnet 4.5. So people might think it's comparable to that model. The reality is they are comparing it with a Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is still a really impressive thing for an open source model. Now, how would you use this? So I would recommend using it in conjunction with something like Sonnet 4.5. So if you look at here, people definitely prefer Claude Sonnet 4.5 compared to this model. However, for the same task, it's about 10%. Usually these open weight models are a lot more verbose in their chain of thought and the number of token it generates. So you have to keep that in mind when you're doing these comparisons. What my recommendation would be that you probably want to use Sonnet 4.5 for something like planning, and then when you have well-defined tasks, use something like M2 for actual implementation. This brings us to another trend we have started seeing. Cognition and Windsurf recently released their own coding model called SWE 1.5. There is also a new model called Composer from Cursor. Both of them are proprietary models, specifically fine-tuned for their purposes. Now, there are some arguments that these are probably trained on top of some of the Chinese base models. Right now, there is no confirmation, but that's a high possibility. And that's why it's very important to have really strong agentic coding models like MiniMax M2. Now, as always, my recommendation is to actually go and test out the model. Don't really rely on an opinion of a YouTuber or even the benchmarks. The good news is that you can try this model for free, even the M2 agent, till November 7. So take advantage of this offer. Anyways, do let me know what your experience with this model and agent. For me, it's been pretty impressive for a model of its size. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.